So once again, my name is Dan Bromberg. I'm the Director of Academic Programs for the Carsey School. I am joined by the Director of the Carsey School, Michael Ettlinger. So we're happy we're going to have a quick kind of question and answer session with Michael. And then if anyone has any questions, they're more than welcome to just send them into that Q&A box on the bottom of your screen. You should see something that says Q&A. You could post a question in there, and I will then filter them towards the end of the conversation. So Michael, just kind of a first question for you. You were influential. You had a team of people that you guys were thinking about the MPP program. You were thinking about designing it and how you wanted it to eventually look. We're now, what, 5 or 6 years past that? Just kind of curious, what was the original thinking, the original vision, and some of the goals that you were hoping, for the program with our students?
Yeah, sure. So I'd worked in public policy for a long, long time. I briefly, for a couple of years in the New York legislature, but for most of my career down in DC. And I had hired a lot of people with MPP degrees, worked with a lot of people with MPP degrees. And I was really excited about building a new program because I thought that what was needed was a program that really was designed so that graduates could really hit the ground running when they started the program and have really the full range of skills that you need to be in the profession. Which, what that meant to me was, the analytic skills and those sorts of things, which are typical of most programs, but also understanding the politics of public policy and the communication side, which is very important, because in my experience, even people whose ambition is to really not be out front politically, not be working for politicians, not being out front as communicators in the business. You really have to understand that side of it in order to be effective, because you're working with people who care a great deal about the political side of it and the communication side of it. And you need to know how to sort of address their needs as you're trying to, be a good and constructive participant in the process. So my idea was you wanted that to be part of the program, like whatever the ambition of the student was. It was an important, very important part of the program, and that was something that was going to that distinguished us from other programs.
Yeah, excellent. And I think to some degree, it certainly, has become evident in the classes that we're offering, and the faculty that we're bringing in, who are professionals in these areas and really are able to get those students, as you said, ready to hit the ground running. So what does that mean for you? You have someone who has been, recently out of undergrad, maybe spent a few years working, potentially in policy, but maybe not. What does it mean then that the program is going to get them ready to jump into that policy world and really hit the ground running?
Well, it's just, focus on kind of the practical skills you need and being very, as I said, I think a lot of times when I would hire people with MPP degrees, they might have a good, very solid theoretical background and have kind of the quantitative and analytic skills. But it took them a while to become effective because they really had never been taught how to put that stuff in a context where decision-making is governed in part very much by sort of what analysis shows and that side of it, but also in part because of the political overlay, because of the need to communicate policies to the public and to the media and those things. And that aspect of it, students were not or graduates were not well prepared for, in my experience, and it made them less effective than they would be otherwise. To be clear, we also give a solid analytic background and quantitative background. That part's very important too. But to really have students prepared to be effective from day one, and as they entered the profession, I thought this broader exposure to the broader aspects of the profession was very, very important.
Yeah, I think what I've learned just from watching you emphasize certain aspects of public policy, is that students actually need to be pretty flexible writers as well. That there isn't always one style of writing that is perfect for every way that you're trying to communicate. That there are multiple styles of writing, and I think you've introduced a very different style of writing that our students are familiar with. Right, they're really familiar with writing those papers that they would for a traditional professor, and I think you're teaching them to write differently. Which I don't know if you could talk about that a little bit.
Well, I will say that. So I had my idea of what I thought an MPP program should be based on my experience, but I'm not the only person out there. So I did go through an exercise, or we did, not just me, of talking to people who in all aspects of the profession, who do in government, out of government, lobbyists, advocates, everybody, and just ask them what do you look for in a job applicant, someone coming out of a school of public policy. And almost every single one of them, in their first or second sentence said, please send us people who can write. And it's a real important strength to have. And some of it is, just sort of getting better at writing generically, but also it is being able to write in a style that's appropriate to different aspects of the public policy world. And so we don't have any writing classes per se, but we do have classes, including one I teach, that really, focus on, very practical, like, simulations of the kind of writing you'd have to do as a policy professional, and offering feedback and advice on how to do that sort of writing effectively.
Yeah, great. One of the things I run into a lot with students when I talk to students who are interested in pursuing the MPP, sometimes they're in between, the idea of either going to law school or getting an MPP degree. And I kind of emphasize that these are pretty different degrees in any number of ways. I think from their perspective, when they hear about public policy and they see the folks who they think are engaged with public policy, they think that they have law degrees. Could you talk about the difference a little bit and why one might pursue an MPP as opposed to pursuing a law degree? You earned your law degree, so it's a field you're familiar with, and you've been in policy for so long. So I'm curious your perspective there.
So I think in my generation, it was much more true that the law degree was the default path. There were many fewer policy, degrees available. A lot of them were very management focused. So I do think, when I was doing it, it was much more the default thing to do if you wanted to go into public policy. And it's certainly a useful degree depending on what you want to do in the field, but you don't learn much about public policy getting a law degree. So my general advice is get a law degree if you want to be a lawyer. Much more, policy places are looking for people who, understand policy, have the skill set to analyze and to policy, to be, do the other things I already described related to policy, and have policy expertise as well. I think one of the things that is important is when if you have a particular interest, you don't have to do this, but as part of getting your policy degree is to, take courses in specific areas that are interested in, because I know that's important as well. But, most law schools, you don't really have an opportunity to, specialize in a substantive policy area unless it's, very legal related. And you really just don't learn about policy. You take contracts and corporations and, in courses like that don't have any relevance. But, there's certainly lots of jobs in public policy that are good for lawyers. I mean, I'll point out, we also have a dual degree option where with just one more semester, I believe it is, beyond your law degree, you get both a law degree and a policy degree, which I think if you're interested in policy and you think that being a lawyer is something you want and that's a path, it's definitely a way to sort of check both boxes pretty darn efficiently. I mean, the other thing is, just to put it bluntly, a law degree is a lot more time and a lot more money. So something
Yes.
about.
Yeah, all great points. And we have a handful of students that are, enrolling in that, the JD MPP dual degree. So we'd be happy to share more information about that if there are folks that are interested in that. So just one more question for you before we open it up to any questions out there. What's your favorite part of the MPP program? Thinking about the whole program, what do you like best about it?
Guess what I'm supposed to say is the students, which I do enjoy the students, but like the part of it that's most fun for me. So I teach one course in the program, in the spring, but I also each year take the MPP class coming in that year. Typically, most of them are to DC for a trip, and we spend a week there. 5 days, 20 to 25 meetings. So it's go. And what it is it's a crash course in the profession. There are other places public policy happens, but there's just the full breadth of things people do intensely in DC. So we visit, agency officials. We've gone to the White House 2 or 3 times, the Pentagon. So we handle the government side. We're on the Hill. We meet with members of Congress. We go to, we've been to embassies. We do lobbyists, corporate lobbyists, advocates, the ACLU to Cato to, Center for American Progress. So, conservative, progressive, political consultants, and really just get exposed, at a very high level. I mean, we get great meetings with top people. Yeah, so we, it's a lot of fun. We people really learn a lot. And I enjoy it as well because, honestly, some of it's seeing old friends, but it's also, just hearing what people in DC are thinking at the moment about what's going on, is just really interesting. And, we get a lot out of it and it's fun. So.
Yeah, and what I would say is, so first I'll say, if anyone's online, if you want to shoot a question into the Q&A, now would be a good time to do that. One of the coolest things I think about the DC trip is you watch the students' progression, not only just during that week, but their reflection after the trip. And frequently you see that change a student's trajectory. Whereas they came into the program with a pretty clear eye on what they thought they wanted to do. They go to DC, they get exposure to all of these different aspects of government and policymaking, and they change, right? They take in that information and they really do change and combine it with what they've been learning. And so I think that growth is really cool to see after the DC trip too.
Yeah, there is a certain aspect of, hey, I want to be her. Like, in 10 years, 20 years, whatever, depending on the person. So yeah, we definitely see some of that. And, I think, yeah, people get a better feel for what part of the business, if you will, they want to be in. And I also think, we see people that not many of our students want to pursue that path. But it's just really important to be exposed to that and to understand it, as you get into the field, to understand, like, how to, corporate tax lobbyists influence the process. How do they think about what they do? How are they effective? Because those are lessons that carry over, no matter what your path might be.
I think that's
And
right.
it's fun visiting in the embassies. Most people in this program are not, going to be ambassadors, but it's interesting getting sort of a perspective from another country about how DC operates and what the different roles are from their perspective. Also, just be exposed to that aspect of DC life and how decisions that are made in the US affect other countries and vice versa, and how that has to be in the sort of the cognitive space of policy making, even if you're primarily focused on domestic policy.
Great. So it looks like we have a question coming in from one of our people on the webinar. So what support is provided to students for obtaining careers in the field upon graduation? So maybe you want to take a stab at that, Michael, and then I'm happy to jump in as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we're pretty good at helping make connections where we can, which we often do. It's not a formal process, but certainly, we make it very clear to students that they should let us know what they're interested, what their career interest is in. And we, through kind of our network of relationships, arrange both informational interviews as well as, we're also always keeping our eyes out for job openings that are emerging, and particularly if it's places where we know people, just highlighting our students' resumes. It's one of the advantages of us having so many practitioners involved in teaching in the program, is that amongst us all, we have a web of relationships that we're happy to utilize for the benefit of our students. And we have a pretty good record of placing people. So.
Yeah, cool. And I would add that, while, to Michael's point, while it's not formalized, there is something very, process oriented related, to your internship, then to your capstone, and then to, that pipeline into your job out of school. We try to position those two experiential learning opportunities to get you into the position that you're looking to move into. I would also offer that I believe we have 6 fellowships that we're going to be putting out this year for our students. And those fellowships, some are more research based, some are more based on, facilitation skills. Some are very much, based on just policy, very specific policy research in specific fields like disability policy. So those are also opportunities for you to build your network, gain a set of skills. You get paid while you're doing it, so that's an added bonus. But then also, make your way into that specific career path that you're looking to do. So that's a great opportunity too.
Yeah, one thing I'll add to that is the DC trip plays into this as well. I mean, one of the good things about that trip is it exposes potential employers to our great students, and they're not job interviews, but, by and large, I would say that the people we visited have been impressed by our students. So, we think of it both as an educational opportunity, but also as an opportunity to build the reputation of the school, which, redounds to the benefit of all our students. We're also developing more and more of an alumni base from the MPP program, but the Carsey School generally has an alumni base, beyond the MPP program, and people are pretty supportive. So that helps.
Yeah, no question. So I think we're going on nearly, 800 alum, for the Carsey School as a whole. And there are a number of meetings, just thinking about DC, where, someone will hand their business card out to either students or to Michael or myself and say, hey, feel free to have your students reach out, when they're starting to look. So I think it's a lot of that, as part of the process of when you start looking for that career.
Yeah, a number of the people we visit in DC typically are UNH alum, and want to be supportive of UNH, graduates. So they're particularly likely to do that. So.
I'm not seeing any more specific questions, so I think what we'll do, we've spent, the time we kind of allocated to be on here. So what I'd like to do is just certainly let everyone know about our scholarships that are available, our fellowships that are available. I would encourage you to check out our webpage. And just take a look in those areas, especially if you're making your way through the application process. Both of those opportunities help to provide you support and capacity to make your way through the program. And obviously, if you have any other questions that you'd like to answer, either Michael or myself, you're welcome to reach out. And we also have a full academic team that's posted on our website that are they're happy to help you work your way through the application and answer any other questions that you might have. So please be in touch, and we look forward to chatting with all of you as you make your way through the application process and hopefully in our classrooms. Take care.